Good morning, fellow Hoop fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Last Shot NBA show right here on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our great mates over there at topsport.com.au. The NBA circus, the NBA soap opera continues to roll on. There was some big news that came out not long after we finished our last show on Friday morning, and just, you know, it's continued to snowball over the weekend, and we've got a lot to talk about today, so we're going to bring on Benyam Kidane from NBA Australia. BK, my brother, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my man. How you living?
I'm living good, man. I'm living good. And like I said, I think it's a true sort of characterization of everything that goes on in the NBA world. It's a soap opera, BK. Like, this stuff never ends.
And if the NBA is a soap opera, the Nets are that storyline that gets its own spin-off series from the soap opera.
Absolutely, man. We were joking about this off air just before we started the show that the Nets are such a basket case at the moment. They're making the Knicks look like a half decent franchise.
Hey, the Knicks are a smooth, stable, well-run organization at this point. If we're comparing boroughs right now. Hey,
James Dolan is looking like the owner of the year compared to Joe Tsai, and that's quite an achievement in itself. We are going to talk Brooklyn Nets and that whole Kyrie Irving situation, because like I said, BK, it just sort of seemed to blow up not long after we finished our show on Friday morning, where the Brooklyn Nets suspended Kyrie Irving for no less than 5 games. This followed Kyrie Irving sort of finally appearing before the media and speaking and answering questions regarding that social media post, which obviously it's been spoken about to death. Everyone knows what it is at this point. But the Nets did believe that Kyrie Irving did not come out and emphatically say that he's not anti-Semitic during that media scrum. And we're actually going to listen to a little bit of what Kyrie said right now.
Do you have any anti-Semitic beliefs? Again, I'm going to repeat. I don't know how the label becomes justified, because you guys ask me the same questions over and over again. But this is not going to turn into a spin-around cycle of questions upon questions. I told you guys how I felt. I respect all walks of life and embrace all walks of life. That's where I sit.
I think what people want to hear, though, is just a yes or no on that question. Yes or no.
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from. I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
Yeah, so it seems like Kyrie pretty much doubled down initially. The Nets weren't happy with that. They suspended Kyrie a few hours after that media scrum. And then he also issued an apology, actually, not long after that the Nets suspended him. The drama continued to roll on, though. His former teammate LeBron James, currently with the Los Angeles Lakers, was also asked about the situation, because, of course, that's what you do. We're going to listen to what LeBron said, and then we're going to get into a little bit of discussion about Kyrie.
I can tell you this. It's simple. Me personally, I don't condone any hate to any kind, to any race, to Jewish communities, to black communities, to Asian communities. You guys know where I stand, and it's part of the reason why I didn't air the shop episode, why we kicked that, out of the archives, because it was hate conversation going on there, and I don't represent that. There's no place in this world for it. Nobody can benefit from that, and I believe what Kyrie did caused some harm to a lot of people, and he has since over the last, I think today or was it yesterday, he apologized, but he caused some harm, and I think it's unfortunate, but I don't stand on the position to harm people when it comes to your voice or your platform or anything. And so it doesn't matter what color your skin is, how tall you are, what position you are in. If you are promoting or soliciting or or saying harmful things to any community that harm people, then I don't respect it. I don't
It's a number 42 cap on his head, which I actually think was intentional, as you were speaking about Kyrie there. Now, BK, old mate Kyrie, he's pretty adamant. He was pretty adamant on his stance until it started affecting his bank balance there. He does still have to serve the minimum 5-game suspension. For him to come back, though, the Nets have put in a few stipulations that he has to sort of, follow and adhere to. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, it's messy, and obviously for Kyrie, he apologized after the fact, and there's that gap between intention and how something is received, and whatever his intention was, how it was received didn't really line up to that, and for him, from his perspective, he's entitled to, the way he kind of explained things was that wasn't necessarily the case, but if it's received that way, then obviously something may be afoot, and it's just adding to what's already been a very dramatic couple of weeks for the Brooklyn Nets. Now Kyrie going to be out for 5 games. That's a minimum of 5 games. We don't know how this is going to play out. What steps obviously the Nets have put in front of him to remedy this. And on top of that, they're still trying to find their head coach. There's just a lot going on in Brooklyn that, for a lot of the other guys on the team, this isn't what they wanted from this season, especially considering how they kind of threw it in last season with all the drama as well. It just keeps rolling on here in Brooklyn. Yeah,
you did mention that search for a new coach. Obviously, Ime Udoka has been, mentioned as the potential new coach if and when that does happen. But there's also some other factors to take into consideration here as well. Kevin Durant, which we'll get to in just a second, whether he might sort of put in a trade request come February. But there is also some rumors that the Nets are possibly shopping Kyrie Irving around. Woj from ESPN is reporting that the Nets are trying to trade Kyrie and that Kyrie is aware that they are trying to trade him. BK, I can't imagine that the trade market for a Kyrie Irving would be too high right now. What could they Nets possibly even get back if he was being shopped around?
Hey, this is looking like the crypto market right now. They're going at an all-time low. Well, and look, I've seen names like D'Angelo Russell thrown around, bring him back to Brooklyn. But I mean, if you're another team watching this, how high is your tolerance for risk? Because you're looking at this, we've got a 7-time All-Star who's at the peak of his powers, at least physically. Is that worth what potential headache could come down the track? Because we're now seeing this for the 2nd season in a row in Brooklyn. The season kind of being torpedoed at the hands of Kyrie Irving. So I just don't know what the market is for a guy like Kyrie Irving right now. It's not surprising that the Nets are looking to move on from this, just because, when they arrived in Brooklyn, they arrived because the Nets were a very stable, well-run organization. The culture that they had built, that's all up in flames right now. So it's a tricky one for the Nets. Do you think there's a team out there that will go, hey, we'll take a hand to Kyrie Irving?
It's the NBA, BK. So there's always a team that's going to take or willing to take a risk like that. I just don't know which team it's going to be right now. I doubt that a true contender will. But look, I was just about to say the exact same thing, that the Lakers are still a possibility for something like that. You did mention, the turmoil in Brooklyn. We got to touch on Kevin Durant, BK. He's looking at this like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I came to Brooklyn for. They've underperformed, pretty much every year since he's been there. Okay, you could make the argument the year that they lost to Milwaukee that they were an inch away from sort of progressing to that next round there. But is Kevin Durant going to see this thing out? And when I say this thing, see it out, I mean past February.
This is not what he came to Brooklyn for. This damn sure isn't what he left Golden State for. I think that's the bigger issue, watching them win the title last season. But if I'm Kevin Durant, there's one date circled on my calendar. That's January 15th. That's the first day DeAndre Ayton is eligible to be traded after signing that extension with the Suns. Does he revisit maybe trying to make that Phoenix Suns deal work that popped up during the offseason? The Suns have started the season well, but if Kevin Durant is forcing his way out of Brooklyn, the Phoenix Suns are picking the phone up at least.
Yeah, look, honestly, if Kevin Durant does put in a trade request, and obviously with the turmoil, surrounding Kyrie, I just think it's time for the Brooklyn Nets to blow it up, start from scratch, like get what you can back, draft picks, young pieces, and, start from the beginning for the third time in the last decade.
Did you just say build the team around Ben Simmons? I'm with that.
Look, all of a sudden, he's looking like the most stable guy on this roster. He's probably looking at Kyrie going, thank you for taking some of this media attention away from me.
Yeah, he's just chilling. He's got a sore knee. He's out the spotlight now. So it's just so hard to predict what's going to happen here in Brooklyn, because there's a world where they move on. Kyrie's back. They hire Udoka, and they're a great defense, and now everything's okay. Yeah, but how likely is it all of that to work out? Nicely for the Brooklyn Nets. It's that probably a stretch.
I agree, BK. It remains to be seen. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about another team that's not quite in the turmoil that the Brooklyn Nets are, but they've started out slowly, and that's the defending NBA champs, the Golden State Warriors. After 10 games, they're just 3-7, and do not look like the team that won their 4th ring of this modern era just back in June. They're 0-6 on the road, BK, making history as the first NBA team in NBA history to start 0-6 on the road after having won the championship the previous year. They have the 16th best offensive rating in the league. They've lost to the Charlotte Hornets twice already this season. Steph Curry, following the second loss, was asked what he thinks is wrong with the Warriors, and we're going to have a listen to what he had to say after that game.
I mean, it's the communication, understanding what we're trying to do in terms of making teams uncomfortable. So we got to get, more aggressive, I think, be the first one to strike instead of reacting to what everybody's doing. I think there has to be a feeling and an understanding that, and I think Draymond talked about it after the game in the locker room, that every team is coming after us with their best effort, knowing, we're the defending champs. And whether you were, out there on the floor in the playoff run or finals, whatever, like, we know what that feels like, but everybody has to meet that intensity from the jump and give ourselves some momentum on that in the floor to make teams uncomfortable. So communicating, being the first one to attack, and set the tone for Warrior defensive championship level basketball on that end of the floor. We haven't done it consistently enough to give ourselves a chance to win games like tonight.
So Steph thinks that the Warriors need to be a little bit more aggressive. Now, he's probably been the most sort of consistent positive from the Warriors this season. We're going to take a look at some numbers that he's been putting up and how the Warriors are performing as a whole when he's off the court. And look at that, BK. Steph definitely needs some help. They're plus 33 with him on the floor, minus 62. Jesus, that's a big number. Minus 62 with him sitting on the bench. Now, they lost a lot of key pieces in the offseason. Obviously, they lose GP to Otto Porter, Nemanja Bjelica. And then they brought in guys, not brought in, but they've got guys like James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody sort of taking up those minutes. Wiseman, for his part, BK, I don't think he's progressed as much as the Warriors would have liked. For example, the Warriors are also being outscored by nearly 24 points per 100 possessions whenever James Wiseman is on the floor. Just to put a bit more sort of context into that, the team with the worst net rating in the league is the Detroit Pistons, and they're being outscored by 10 points per 100 possessions on the floor. What's going on in Golden State?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the experience that they lost last season. Or from last season's team, rather. And when they had these young guys on the roster, when they won the title, it was nice every now and then when you'd get a contribution from one of these guys off the bench. This season, they need the young guys, every night. Klay Thompson is older. Draymond is older. We see what Steph is doing, but, Steph's incredible, but he's also getting older as well. So it's that transition of getting these young guys into their roles. We've seen James Wiseman, who I'm still a big believer in. I really like his talent, but we see Steph Curry screaming at him to set screens and make the right reads offensively. And there just doesn't seem to have that same level of, I guess, fluidity that we're familiar with from the Golden State Warriors. And Kuminga's another guy for me. We saw him in extended minutes the other night. I think he had 19 points. Like, this guy, for me, he needs to play. He's ready. I think he's going to be a star one day. But what he offers on both ends of the floor, just in terms of being an athletic body, this is a guy that I think you can plug in to the Warriors system and get results right away. So don't be surprised if we see a lot more Kuminga, and especially because their defense just hasn't really been where it's needed to be to start this season. I think a guy like Kuminga is someone that can come in and help on both ends.
You think they're able to turn it around, BK? Because I do like that point that you made about sort of these younger guys. Last year, they were playing. They didn't have as much of a role to play, obviously, because the veterans were sort of, taking charge, and now they're required to do a lot more. So you are going to get a lot of inconsistencies from, the young guys like that. They've been resting guys. I think the other day they rested pretty much their entire big four. So they're going to be doing that throughout the season, I feel. So it's going to be a chance for the younger guys to sort of step up and do it. Can they get out of this sort of slump that they're in right now?
I think so. Look, it's a long season. There's a lot of basketball still to be played, and in terms of figuring out your identity, the Warriors are probably closer than anyone in terms of knowing who they are and knowing what they want to try and do. But it's just kind of bridging that gap between the experienced Big Four and these effectively second year players that are coming in. But one guy who I'm looking at is Jordan Poole. I mean, they just gave you the bag. You gotta show them what that's worth. Yeah.
He's been a little bit inconsistent to say the least too, hasn't he?
But that's kind of his game, right? Like, it's the highs are high and the lows are whatever.
He's the new J.R. Smith, and hey, I'm here for it.
let's make that a thing.
Yes, sir. All right, BK, we're going to let you go, my man. We'll catch you. You'll be here on Wednesday morning because unfortunately Parky is absent for the week. So we'll catch you on Wednesday. Cheers, BK.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, like I said, Parky is actually going to be with us, not going to be with us this week. He's playing in a tournament up in Queensland. So we do wish Parky all the best up there in that tournament. Unless he's playing against some ex-North Melbourne Giants players, then I'll be going for those guys. Just kidding, Parky, sort of. All right, we're going to take a look at the 3 games left to play. One is in action already at the moment. We're going to start off here with the Memphis Grizzlies and the Washington Wizards. Memphis Grizzlies, $1.25. Wizards, $4.10. The line's at -9. The total is at 224.5. You can catch this one live on NBA League Pass today. Now, the Grizzlies playing at home. They're undefeated at home. They're 3-0. The Wizards, they're not a good road team so far. They're 1-3 on the road. That total there, that's the one that I'm looking at. I think I like the under on that one there. If we look at both these sides, the Memphis Grizzlies, they're leading the league in scoring. They're averaging just over 118 points per game. The Wizards average at around 107, 108. So I'm liking the under there. I like the Grizzlies to win this one at home. They're going to remain undefeated, and I do think that they cover that spread as well. Moving on, we're going to take a look at the second game here. We've got the Toronto Raptors and the Chicago Bulls. The Raptors, $1.58 favorites. Chicago Bulls, $2.45. The line's at -4. Totals at 220 even. This one's live on NBA League Pass. This is a battle between the 5th and the 6th seeds in the East at the moment. The Raps are 5-4 on the season. The Bulls are 5-5. So not quite the hot start for Chicago as it was last season. The Raps, 3-1 at home. They're always strong at home in Toronto there. The Bulls are just 2-3 on the road. Derrick Jones and Zach LaVine are both day-to-day and questionable for this game, which will be a big loss for the Chicago Bulls if they don't play, especially without Zach LaVine. The Raptors will be without Fred VanVleet, and Pascal Siakam is going to miss the next couple of weeks. Kem Birch is also questionable. So that could affect the result of this game here. It's going to be a tough one to call. I am going to go on the under on this one here. The Raps are averaging about 113 points per game. The Bulls that are about 112. So I'll take the under. I have to go with the Raps at home, despite the fact that Siakam and Van Vliet are not playing. Also Zach LaVine might be out for the Bulls as well. But I have to go with the Raps at home, and I like the Raps to win in a close one by 4 points on this one here. And then we're going to move on to the last game that we're going to take a look at as well. This should be a fun one. The LA Clippers, favorites, $1.60 in this game here. The Utah Jazz, $2.41. The line's at -3.5. Total is at 221 even for this one here. This one's live on ESPN. Clippers are heading into this one favorites. Surprising because the Jazz are probably the second best team in the Western Conference so far. They're 7-3 on the season. Somebody has forgotten to tell them that they were supposed to tank this season. The LA Clippers are just 5-4. Clippers are averaging 102 points per game, which is actually the worst in the league. While the surprising Jazz have the fourth best points per game scoring average with 117. The Jazz defense is allowing 112 points per game. Clippers are allowing 106. So I like the under again on this one here. No Robert Covington, no Kawhi Leonard for this game for the LA Clippers. Despite what the money says, I like the Utah Jazz to get an away win here. I actually think they're going to probably win by about 6 to 8 points there. So take that one for what it's worth, but I definitely like the under on this one here. All right, guys, that's been another episode of The Last Shot NBA show right here on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our great mates over there at topsport.com.au. We'll catch you guys Wednesday morning.